then I didn't want to be just a sex symbol. I wanted to be an actress. I didn't have any goal of what I wanted to be, and that would have helped me, but I did not. I just struggled to get the A's, to get through high school, to get a scholarship, to go to college, and it would have been nice to have. Now I wish I had wanted to be a writer, but I didn't then, and because I went to business college after Immaculate Heart College, which was a standard college, and I said, what am I breaking my brain for? I don't know what I want to be, so I'll get a secretarial course. And I went to Glendale College, and in a semester and a half, I had my skills and went out and got a job. While I was at the job for about a year, I was not a happy camper in a marriage. It should never have been. It was totally mismatched. That's what you did in the 50s. You just kind of automatically got married when that's not really what you were after. And so I was looking for any relief in my life or real pleasure, and I entered a beauty contest. Out of that came a job to be on a show, and what opened my eyes was this environment. I thought, this is where I want to be. At last I know where I want to go in my life. I want to be in this business. I mean, I was not stupid. Anybody else would have done the same thing, seeing Frank Sinatra and Jimmy Durante rehearsing a song. It was the Colgate Comedy Hour, which was on every Sunday, and it alternated 4 or 5 comedians. Eddie Cantor, I think Groucho Marx, Jimmy Durante. I'm sure so there were 4 or 5 who alternated, so they ended up doing 1 a month. And I got on that show, became quite friendly with Jimmy Durante because he had me on several times, 4 or 5 times maybe, but I was bitten, truly bitten. Television then became what summer stock had been before television. You had to learn your craft somewhere. And so you went to little theaters and got parts in plays and all. Well, this television thing they called television was where you didn't have to be doing Macbeth. And so I was learning and learning my craft as I was going. But yes, many were live. The Colgate Comedy Hour was definitely live. And that's also what makes it so wonderful, because it's supercharged with energy. These days, there's almost no point to live. I mean, we see the Country Music Awards or something like that, or the Academy Awards, and it's live, but things don't really go wrong because there is no real right. But in a show where you have to deliver the right line and it's live, then or the furniture doesn't fall apart, or the wall doesn't fall in on you or something, but it was exciting, but wow, nerve-wracking. Well, I think it was cheap. It was the least expensive kind of show to do. The sets were right outside. We would go where Thousand Oaks is now, heavily populated, and it was then just rocks and trees and sand. So they were relatively inexpensive to make, and you didn't have to have great actors, so you could get cheap new actors like me, and while maybe the Henry Fonda wouldn't be doing that. So I think that's why, and also Westerns were still popular, so it was kind of a built-in audience. I lived in the plains of North Dakota, and we were so poor we didn't even have sand. But North Dakota is a wonderful state, but it is not at all a Utah or Arizona with monuments and vast vistas. It has a vastness in another fabulous way. But no, they're not at all akin. If you saw Grapes of Wrath, that was more like it. When things happen gradually, it's a much different effect. You know, first it's, oh, there's my picture in the paper. Oh, that's great. Oh, I look pretty good. And then it's, you know, you get, oh, gosh, I've got to do another photo shoot for a magazine, you know, and it gradually comes on you. I never had the sense of it being a burden. If I was a sex symbol, I was very comfortable with it because it was just what I was. I didn't have to embellish it or work on it or change my style or anything. It was just what I was, so I didn't have a problem. But I was thrilled to a point. Then I didn't want to be just a sex symbol. I wanted to be an actress. There's a fine line there. I mean, I think I did the right thing, but I didn't want, Jane Mansfield was only known as a sex symbol, for instance, and poor thing didn't live long enough to prove that she could really probably act. But I always was rather stable, a North Dakota stable thinker and thinking of my future and making sure I would have an income when I was past the age of 31 because sex symbols didn't used to go on forever. By 40 you were finished in show business in the 30s, 40s, 50s. It was a man's world until the 70s and 80s, but I liked men, and I do to this day. People say, you really like men, don't you? And I said, yeah, I do. And some people don't. I mean, they're not comfortable with men. Some women are not comfortable with men, and I always have been. Well, when I went to Universal, I was under contract, and they wanted to build me to be a star, of course. That's why you sign people under contract. And their point of view was Angie Dickinson, a woman living in a man's world. And that was the key to a lot of interviews I gave, because I did play poker. I did go to baseball games. What else did I do? You know, the usual thing. And I've always been that way, but I think it was probably because my mother worked, and I subconsciously assumed I would always work. Oh, I did not want to do a series, no. I had done Police Story, which was the last episode of their first season, and it was brutal. It was 7 very tough days. And so then they offered me to do a series off it. And I knew it would be like that. Constant, long, heavy days. And it doesn't end when they send you home. You're reading the next show. You're memorizing for the next morning. You're memorizing all day long. No cell phones then. You couldn't call your family and say, we're running late, I'll be late. I had a family, and no, I didn't want to do that. So they talked me into it. David Gerber was the producer of Police Story, and he was the producer of Policewoman. So he came to me, and I was shooting a movie, and it was the same kind of schedule, just breakneck hours that were just pathetic. And I said, I just can't, I have a family. And he said, don't you want to be a household name? And that did it. I did want to be. And so they said, well, tell us what you think you can live with. And I, you know, had them let me go at a certain time every day when we were in the studio, and I made it work, but it was rough. So that's why I didn't want to do it. It was because I had a life outside of movies, and when you do a series, there is no life outside of what you're doing. I did not feel a sense of a role model at all. I think that would have been very scary. And by the way, I was married to a composer at the time, Burt Bacharach, and they asked him if he would do the song, and he said, "No, I'm working on something else." Well, he wasn't. He just didn't want to be embarrassed. Nobody thought it would be a hit. There was not, except for the comedies, Mary Tyler Moore and Carol Burnett and Marlo Thomas and Lucille Ball, there had not been a successful hour-long television show, and certainly a woman, policewoman, a woman cop. So most people shrugged it off as, you know, okay, well, so it was not thought to probably be a success. They accepted 4 years from me instead of the normal 5. They too probably thought it only would go if a year or two. We were #1 a couple of times the first year, tied with the Orange Bowl 1 year. Now that felt good. So I had no idea about a role model. It just, you know, didn't occur to me. I mean, I have broken down with some of them. They come up to me and say, "My sister joined the force because of you, and I became a cop because of you." That is really touching. That's hard to take without being caught off guard. And the applications for female cops was way up while my show was on. So that always felt good about that. Well, it was 1974, and there was a lot of liberating going on. The women wanted to have their rights. They wanted equal pay for equal work. It was, you know, out of the 60s, which were violent and protesting a new way of living, a new way. Slavery was over, and slavery of different kinds was over. Sexual slavery, everything, you know. So there was a lot of newness to the world, at least to America, especially America in the 60s. And it carried over into the 70s. But I didn't weigh any of that. I mean, I read a script, and it happened to have a female cop in it. That was for the police story. And I remember saying to my agent, "Yeah, I'll take that, I'll do that." And he said, "Well, why is this different from all the rest that I've sent you and you didn't want to do?" And I said, "I don't know, it just is." It was simple, it was a heroine. I loved being a heroine, and I loved that she was allowed to be sexy and still a hero. It's not an easy combination. And I remember we had our meetings when I said I would do the show, the series, and there was one woman, all I remember her name was June, I don't remember her last name, who could sit with us and told us stories about women cops. But in '74, you still turned your head when you saw a woman in a uniform. And you know, oh, look, there's a lady cop. It still very much was out of the ordinary in '74. But I still didn't think I was a role model. I only thought, I'm not going to get home till 8 o'clock. So I tossed around 3 names, and Pepper was one of them. And the producer just said, "Great, let's go with that." He said, "What's her last name?" I said, "Oh, her last name, Anderson." And he said, "Fine," and that's how it happened. It went so fast. We had to put it together so quickly. You can't imagine starting from ground zero with nothing and forming a new place. It's just fascinating, but it's very difficult. I'm not used to that. I'm used to doing a part, and they've already built the sets, and they've already written the script, and the other actors are all in place, and to start, and you've got to build it yourself and be a creator was very strange to me and fun. The getting Earl Holliman was very crucial because we could play off each other, slightly sexually suggestive, and yet we had to make room for the guest star that I could fall in love with and not make me look like a tramp. And so that was their job. But the camaraderie among the four of us was very, very nice. We liked each other very much. Charlie Deerkop and Ed Bernard. So that helped a lot. That just made me look good. I had to control my series. I only refused to do one show, and that was where they had me driving an 18-wheeler. And I said, I just won't do it, because she couldn't. She just couldn't, and if she could, it would be absurd. I mean, I don't have muscles like that would take to just steer the damn thing. And and there were a couple of other minor spots, but they pretty much had their right eye on it. We had a wonderful producer, Doug Benton, because David Gerber was the executive producer. He had other shows he had to watch also. And so we had a really fine man in Doug Benton, and they already knew who she was. Classy dame. Yes, it always seemed absurd to me. If they had had the cameras, the sound camera rolling, the sound machine rolling, when I would have to get in those damn showers. I cursed David Gerber. Oh, God, I really hated it, but I had to do it. I had to do it enough to where I wouldn't have to threaten to walk. So they were careful, but I always hated it. Yeah, you try it. You know, they're up in the rafters watching everything. Yeah, it's not fun to be naked and wet. Oh yes, yes. I would be the guy with the clapper, you know. So I say, okay, and I'll change the number. Okay, 1, 2, okay, slow down, Earl. You know, and then I would have to do take one, and then bury that, get it out of sight, get back, and just be, oh yes. Sometimes the sound guy would be in the back. Yeah, we'd be with our little microphones hidden all the time, but hated that. That's maybe the worst part of movie making, is having to get a good sound. Now you want a good sound, but what you have to go through, where you hide the mic, if you're not in a big jacket, is very tough. And I was not in big jackets very often. So I would have them on my ankle if I had pants on, slacks. I would, you know, if I was bare in the midriff or bare up here, it's very, very hard and maddening, because that's not acting. And all actors hate that, but none of them hate it more than I do. But yeah, sometimes the sound man would hide in the back seat, for whatever reason. He had to change reels or something, I don't know. And we had a technical advisor on the set at all times. And they had to help us, tell us what we would do, tell us what we would not do, how to hold the gun, I don't think I ever had to load it on camera, but they would have been there to show us how. And yeah, we tried. No, we didn't try. We were very specific and very accurate. We knew we'd be criticized if it weren't perfect. We were groundbreakers, and that's fun to know that. Because when you can see it's happening in another field, and not your own, you know, you can't see the forest for the trees, it's astonishing. It brings me enormous gratification, yes, yes. And it was not self-conscious, as I say. We weren't out to break down any barriers. As a matter of fact, the feminists didn't like that I didn't use my forum to be more feminist. more active, you know, be more of an activist on their behalf. But I always said, well, I'm feminine, and I'm not a feminist. It just comes automatically to me. But again, as I say, I never competed with a man for anything that I know of.
What did they want you to do?
Well, I don't know. I guess stand up for their rights more. I didn't have time to go out and do it. They weren't specific, but I would feel it and I would read it. And they thought I should have been more vocal. Absolutely groundbreaking. Charlie's Angels could not have existed without my show, because that was a spoof, you know, and a glamorous, beautiful spoof, but nobody would have bought it, I don't think, if there hadn't been the real thing. I mean, you can't do Blazing Saddles without a real Western to really get what's going on. But also there just seemed something real about our show. I don't think it wasn't there. It wasn't on a pulpit. It just was a normal, routine working day and working people, and it isn't as if we were preaching. But when you're dealing with realism and something as important as the police force, we did not want to be a joke, and we did not want to disrespect the police force. So we felt the necessity to be very real. And I don't know, I would like to be like Pepper. I'm not sure that Pepper is like me, but I certainly would like to be like her. But that was again, there's a certain amount of acting that you bring into it, but it's based on realism, no question about it. I think, yeah, the Charlie's Angels was not based on realism. It was based on fun and beauty and fashion and you know, fun for an hour. But no, ours was based on some fun in real life. Yeah,
Pepper was not
that's a good question.
Everybody loved Pepper.
That's been my whole life. Personal life too. I'm not a threat. I mean, I have a joy about me, or an effervescence or something, but it is not, it's genuine, and it's because of everything going on. I mean, it's not her husband I'm after. It's just me. The same with, and I don't really know the answer, but I always used to say women looking at a movie that I'm in don't think I'm after their husband. They think I'm after the guy on the screen. So that's a very, very nice attitude. That's how I got some commercials. They knew women didn't resent me, and they wanted to appeal to the woman. She does the buying. And avocados, for instance, had a big campaign with that, and they said, women don't resent Angie. And I think it's because it's genuine, I guess. Don't analyze it too much. It might get you in trouble.